You look around and something doesn't add up. The same men keep winning. Different industries. Different backgrounds. Same outcome. Money finds them. While you stay grinding in place. More hours. More pressure. More sacrifice. And the numbers barely move. It feels unfair. It feels rigged. And that reaction right there is the first psychological trap. Because money has no respect for fairness. It does not care how tired you are. It does not reward intention. It does not respond to effort alone. Money responds to psychology. And psychology responds to power. Most men never see this. They are too busy reacting. Too busy surviving the week. Too busy believing that if they just push harder, the system will eventually recognize them. It won't. Money is not moral. It is not generous. It does not reward loyalty. It flows toward those who understand how people actually behave. Not how they wish they behaved. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Not because he chased wealth. Because he studied power. And money is simply power in modern clothing. If you do not understand the psychology beneath it, you will spend your life chasing surface results. Working harder. Saving tighter. Waiting longer. Wondering why nothing fundamentally shifts. Here is the uncomfortable truth most men avoid. Poverty is rarely about intelligence. It is about mental programming. You were trained to believe money is earned. That it is deserved. That effort equals reward. That belief sounds honorable. It is also limiting. The moment you believe money must be earned through effort alone, you accept dependence. Dependence on employers. On systems. On approval. On permission. And dependence is weakness. Weakness is noticed. Weakness is leveraged. Look at the men who stay stuck for decades. They share the same illusion. They believe if they follow the rules, they will be rewarded. They believe visibility creates power. They believe honesty alone is leverage. Those ideas feel safe. That is why they are dangerous. Comfort is the enemy of control. The wealthy do not operate from comfort. They operate from clarity. They see what most refuse to admit. Human beings are predictable, emotional, reactive. And money flows toward the man who can predict, influence, and position himself above that behavior. This is where the divide begins. The average man experiences money emotionally. Fear when it leaves. Relief when it arrives. Anxiety when it slows. His mood rises and falls with his bank account. He is governed by it. The strategist watches money without emotion. He studies it as movement. As leverage. As signal. He doesn't ask, how much did I make? He asks, where did control shift? That question alone separates survival from dominance. Most men believe wealth is accumulation. Save more. Stack more. Hold tighter. But accumulation without control creates fragility. The more you cling, the more you fear losing. The more you fear losing, the more predictable you become. And predictability is poverty. Men forget danger when times feel stable. When income is steady. When comfort creeps in. They stop watching. Stop positioning. Stop preparing. Then conditions shift. Markets turn. Employers cut. Opportunities close. And they are exposed. This is why sudden wealth disappears so often. The numbers changed. The psychology didn't. The mind remained fragile. And fragility cannot hold power. Here is what most will never say out loud. Money does not transform you. It reveals you. If you were reactive before, you become reckless with scale. If you were insecure before, you overspend to signal strength. If you were impulsive before, you magnify the damage. The disciplined understand this. That is why they master psychology before expansion. They practice detachment. Detachment is not indifference. It is control over reaction. When money becomes emotional, decisions shrink. When money becomes neutral, decisions extend. The average man asks, "Can I afford this?" The strategist asks, "What position does this create?" That single shift in question changes trajectory. But most never ask it. They were conditioned to think small, to protect stability, to avoid discomfort, to minimize risk. And minimizing risk maintains dependence. It does not create power. Power requires exposure. Exposure requires nerve. There is no path to leverage without moments of visible risk. The psychology of making money begins when you realize safety is not neutral. It is a choice. And every choice has a trade. Choose safety, and you trade growth for predictability. Choose control, and you trade comfort for leverage. There is no third option. Is this you? Have you convinced yourself that playing safe is wisdom? Or is it fear disguised as responsibility? Most men remain trapped not because opportunity is absent, but because they interpret opportunity as threat. A disruption to routine. A risk to stability. So they retreat. And retreat is visible. Money moves toward expansion. Toward confidence. Toward controlled boldness. Not desperation. Not hesitation. Watch real negotiations. Watch power exchanges. The man who speaks least often controls the frame. The man who reacts slowest sets the pace. The man who appears least desperate shapes the terms. Desperation leaks through micro-behavior. Through tone. Through urgency. And it is punished. This is why perception outranks intention. Humans respond to what they see, not what you mean. If you look needy, you will be treated as replaceable. If you look stable, you will be tested. If you look powerful, you will be accommodated. Money follows perception. Most men believe wealth comes from proving value. The truth is colder. It comes from positioning value. The worker proves. The strategist positions. One chases approval. The other creates dependence. Working harder increases output. It does not automatically increase leverage. Leverage is psychological before it becomes structural. It begins the moment you detach your worth from visible effort. The moment you stop advertising struggle. The moment you stop explaining yourself. Silence alters perception. And perception shifts power. The question is, are you still trying to be recognized? Or are you ready to be positioned? Because the next layer of this psychology goes deeper than effort and far more uncomfortable than you expect. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something most men still resist. Silence unsettles people. When you stop talking, they start filling the space. With explanations. With concessions. With mistakes. The same law governs money. The man who rushes reveals hunger. The man who waits reveals options. And options are power. This is not passive patience. It is calculated restraint. The average man spends to relieve internal pressure. He feels tension and eliminates it. He buys. He upgrades. He commits too fast. He explains too much. He thinks action equals strength. But what he is really doing is bleeding leverage. The strategist does the opposite. He allows pressure to build. He lets others grow uncomfortable first. Because pressure forces movement. And movement exposes opportunity. Most people cannot tolerate that discomfort. Can you? Or do you rush to close deals, to answer messages, to prove value, just to calm your own anxiety? Every time you rush, you communicate weakness. Every time you over-explain, you lower your position. And you rarely even realize it. This is why the psychology of making money feels unnatural at first. It goes against social training, against moral conditioning, against the need to be liked. But wealth has never been about being liked. It has always been about being necessary. And necessity is engineered, not requested. Men who stay broke often believe they are overlooked, invisible, undervalued. But look closer. They are not invisible. They are predictable. And predictability is worse than invisibility. Once your reactions can be anticipated, you can be steered. Once you can be steered, you can be priced. Once you can be priced, you can be contained. The wealthy reverse this dynamic. They become difficult to read, difficult to pressure, difficult to rush. Unreadability is armor. When people cannot predict your reaction, they hesitate. When they hesitate, you control tempo. And money flows toward whoever controls tempo. This is why Machiavellian thinking feels cold. It strips away illusions. It removes emotional cushioning. It forces you to see that money is not a reward for merit. It is a result of positioning within human behavior. Until you accept that, everything else is noise. Most men will stop here. They will feel resistance rising. They will label this cynical, manipulative, dangerous. That reaction is predictable. Because the next layer requires abandoning comforting lies. Lies about fairness, about effort, about deserving. Without those lies, you are forced to confront something sharper. Your lack of control. The psychology of making money is not built on optimism. It is built on realism. Machiavelli observed that men do not act according to ideals. They act according to incentives. Fear. Advantage. Money obeys the same forces. This is why information alone changes nothing. Men read financial books, memorize strategies, repeat advice. Yet their outcomes remain the same. Because knowledge without identity shift is decoration. The worker identity is deeply programmed. It disguises obedience as virtue, hard labor as morality, sacrifice as honor. But money does not reward morality. It rewards utility. The moment you define yourself primarily as a worker, you cap your leverage. Workers are interchangeable, replaceable, even when highly paid. The strategist defines himself differently. Not by output, by position. Position determines flow. Flow determines wealth. This is why some individuals earn in weeks what others earn in years, without appearing to work harder. They are not competing on effort. They are operating above it. Most men never look above. They look sideways. Comparing salaries. Comparing hours. Comparing titles. Meanwhile, the real game is vertical. Structural. Invisible from ground level. Machiavelli warned that those obsessed with appearances at their own level miss the forces shaping their fate. Money does not circulate evenly. It pools. It concentrates. It obeys structure. If you are not building structure, you are feeding one. Let that settle. If you are not controlling a system, you are being used by one. Emotional spending exposes this weakness clearly. It feels justified. You worked hard. You deserve it. It relieves tension. But it trains your mind to link money with comfort instead of control. And comfort dulls perception. The more you crave relief, the less you tolerate delay. The less you tolerate delay, the more you accept weak terms. Weak contracts. Weak negotiations. Weak positioning. Bad terms rarely explode. They compound quietly. Machiavelli noted that men trade long-term power for short-term peace. That is the psychology of poverty. The wealthy invert this instinct. They accept temporary discomfort to secure durable advantage. Not because they are saints of discipline. Because they are strategic. They understand something most miss. Time does not reward patience. Position rewards patience. Waiting without leverage is stagnation. Waiting with leverage is dominance. This is where predator and prey psychology emerges. The prey reacts to circumstance. The predator anticipates it. The prey seeks reassurance. The predator creates certainty for others. The prey explains himself. The predator listens. Money moves accordingly. Watch how people reveal themselves. Through spending. Through urgency. Through negotiation tone. Through lifestyle signals. They broadcast fear without words. And others read it instantly. Machiavelli understood that visibility without power is vulnerability. The modern version? Financial transparency without leverage. When you reveal too much about your needs, your timeline, your dependence, you are priced accordingly. The wealthy practice selective opacity. They reveal enough to attract opportunity. Never enough to lose advantage. This is not paranoia. It is positioning. Withholding creates mystique. Mystique increases perceived value. Perceived value creates leverage. And leverage attracts money. Notice something. The men who talk constantly about money often control it the least. They seek validation, recognition, external confirmation. The strategist seeks none of that. He seeks alignment. He positions himself where interaction must happen on his terms. That is the psychological shift. Most men try to be chosen. The wealthy design themselves to be unavoidable. Not loud. Not desperate. Unavoidable. This requires detachment from approval. From being understood. From being liked. And that is where most hesitate. Because the next step demands something even harder than discipline. It demands redefining how you see yourself in the hierarchy of power. Niccolò Machiavelli warned that the man who tries to satisfy everyone ends up satisfying no one, least of all himself. Money follows the same rule. It punishes people-pleasing. It rewards clarity. When you are clear, you move decisively. When you move decisively, resources organize around you. Decisiveness is attractive because it signals direction. And direction signals strength. Indecision is not neutral. It leaks weakness. Weakness invites pressure. Pressure extracts concessions. And concessions, small and repeated, quietly drain power over time. The psychology of making money is not rooted in greed. It is rooted in boundaries. Knowing when to remain silent. Knowing when to walk away. Knowing when to let others overextend while you conserve position. The average man clings to opportunity out of fear it won't return. The strategist lets opportunity prove itself. He does not chase. He evaluates. Desperation shrinks perception. Calm expands it. That is why emotional stability is not optional. It is a financial weapon. Can you remain unmoved when uncertainty rises? Or do you rush to secure something, anything, just to feel safe? Those who remain composed during volatility gain access to outcomes others panic away from. Machiavelli observed that fortune favors the prepared when others freeze. Not because they are fearless. Because they are steady. Composure is not personality. It is trained perspective. It grows from understanding that loss is not final. It is information. The poor interpret loss as identity damage. The strategist interprets it as tuition. That shift alone transforms risk. When loss feels terminal, you avoid risk entirely. When loss feels instructional, you calculate it. And calculated risk is where disproportionate wealth is born. Many intelligent men stay financially stagnant not because they lack skill, but because they defend the wrong certainties. They protect small guarantees instead of pursuing large asymmetries. Money moves asymmetrically. Small, precise inputs. Large, leveraged outputs. But only when positioned correctly. The worker seeks guaranteed returns. The strategist seeks leverage points. Leverage points feel uncomfortable, unclear, unfamiliar, which is exactly why most avoid them. Machiavelli noted that men cling to what is familiar, even when it harms them, especially when change threatens identity. An identity is the real barrier. Not information. Attachment. The moment you define yourself as someone who plays it safe, your behavior aligns with that image automatically. You sabotage expansion without realizing it. Identity governs action more than logic ever will. This is why the shift from worker to strategist is structural, not cosmetic. It changes how you see the board. You stop asking, "What should I do next?" You start asking, "Where should I stand?" Position determines influence. Standing correctly can outweigh constant movement. Most men exhaust themselves in motion while remaining badly positioned. Movement without leverage is noise. The wealthy often appear to move less. But when they do, environments shift. That is not luck. It is accumulated psychological advantage applied at precise moments. The deeper truth is uncomfortable. Money does not demand constant action. It demands alignment. Alignment between perception, patience, and pressure. When those align, outcomes become increasingly inevitable. This inevitability separates enduring wealth from temporary spikes. And it explains why those who understand the game look calm while others scramble. They are not calm because they are blind to risk. They are calm because they understand the structure underneath it. Once you see that structure, you cannot unsee it. Something subtle changes. Internally first. You begin noticing how often people expose weakness. How quickly they surrender leverage in conversations. How reflexively they rush to fill silence. And how consistently money gravitates toward those who don't. Awareness creates discomfort. Because awareness removes excuses. Once you see the pattern, you can no longer blame the system entirely. You cannot hide behind effort alone. Machiavelli warned that awareness is dangerous because it strips away emotional safety. Excuses protect ego. Clarity exposes responsibility. And responsibility demands discipline. The psychology of making money is not optimism. It is discipline. The discipline to delay response. The discipline to tolerate uncertainty. The discipline to observe without reacting. Reaction is expensive. Every impulsive decision carries hidden costs, lost leverage, poor timing, compromised terms. These costs rarely appear dramatic. They accumulate silently. That is why many feel stuck without identifying a single catastrophic mistake. Nothing exploded. They simply reacted too often. Machiavelli understood that power erodes gradually, not explosively. Wealth erodes the same way. The poor rarely collapse overnight. They deteriorate in increments. The disciplined guard against erosion by controlling exposure. Exposure is not visibility. It is vulnerability. Every time you reveal urgency, you expose yourself. Every time you reveal dependency, you expose yourself. Every time fear shapes your timing, you expose yourself. The strategist structures interaction so others move first. Whoever moves first reveals information. Information reduces leverage. This principle applies everywhere: negotiations, investments, career moves, even purchases. The person who must buy immediately is weak. The person who can wait shapes price. Time becomes leverage only when desperation is absent. Desperation compresses time. And compressed time produces poor decisions. Living financially on the edge is dangerous for this reason. It forces speed. Speed forces compromise. Compromise compounds. The wealthy design slack into their lives. Not laziness. Slack. Slack creates options. Options create power. When you have options, you are no longer negotiating to survive. You are negotiating to dominate terms. Most never experience this shift. They operate within tight margins, emotionally and financially. Tight margins create compliance. Machiavelli noted that those lacking resources submit to those who possess them. That principle has not changed. Money is one resource. Psychological composure is another. Possessing both creates asymmetry. This is why impulse spending is more than bad budgeting. It is emotional leakage. It signals predictability. Marketers, systems, trends, they harvest predictability. Trends are engineered to trigger impatience. The herd rushes. The strategist observes. Not forever. Just long enough. Long enough to see who is bluffing. Long enough to see who is panicking. Long enough to see where fear distorts pricing. Fear always generates opportunity for the composed. Downturns redistribute wealth for this reason. Not because the wealthy are lucky. Because they remain solvent and stable while others collapse emotionally. Emotion precedes liquidation. Many sell at the worst possible moment not because they are forced, but because uncertainty becomes intolerable. Tolerance for uncertainty is a financial skill. Rarely taught. Constantly tested. Machiavelli described fortitude as the ability to withstand pressure without deforming. Markets test form. Negotiations test form. Life tests form. Most deform quickly. They rationalize concessions. They justify retreat. Each justification distances them from leverage. The strategist observes who breaks first. Who speaks too soon. Who gives up ground early. And he remembers. Memory compounds advantage. Patterns repeat. Those who forget patterns repeat losses. Those who remember avoid them. Emotional reactions disrupt memory. Fear narrows awareness. Greed distorts evaluation. Both create short-term thinking. Short-term thinking breeds long-term dependence. And dependence, not low income, is the final state of poverty. Dependence on approval. On permission. On external stability. The strategist seeks autonomy in decision-making. Not isolation. Autonomy. Autonomy allows one word that reshapes negotiations instantly. No. Those unable to say no are priced accordingly. They accept weak deals because refusal feels dangerous. And that is where the real fracture begins, because the inability to refuse is rarely about money. It is about identity. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that refusal is a signal. Not rudeness. Not ego. Strength. Only the man with options can say no without flinching. Only the man with internal stability can walk away without looking back. This is why wealth attracts more wealth. Not because money is magnetic by itself, but because money creates optionality. And optionality compounds. Once you have choices, your decisions sharpen. Sharper decisions create more choices. A reinforcing loop begins. The poor live inside negative loops: fatigue, urgency, compromise. The wealthy operate inside reinforcing ones: margin, clarity, leverage. The divide starts in the mind. This is where the myth of hard work collapses completely. Hard work without leverage multiplies exhaustion. Exhaustion erodes judgment. Eroded judgment produces weak decisions. And weak decisions lock you into more hard work. Machiavelli warned that tired men are easily governed. Financially, it is the same. When you are constantly grinding, you have no distance to think strategically. Strategy requires space. Space requires margin. Margin requires restraint. Restraint feels unnatural in a culture addicted to motion. But motion without direction is drift. The strategist is selective. Selective with time. Selective with energy. Selective with commitments. Commitment without leverage is entrapment. Every unnecessary yes narrows your future. Every automatic agreement closes unseen doors. The wealthy understand opportunity cost instinctively. The poor recognize it only after the damage is done. This is not about IQ. It is about orientation. Toward long-term control instead of short-term relief. The psychology of making money is the psychology of delay. Delay of gratification. Delay of reaction. Delay of disclosure. Delay creates asymmetry. While others rush, you observe. While others panic, you position. While others talk, you measure. This waiting is not passive. It is active containment. Restraint rarely produces immediate applause. Its effects are cumulative. Machiavelli wrote that power is preserved quietly. Wealth behaves the same way. Loud pursuit repels it. Quiet orchestration attracts it. Those who chase attention rarely retain resources. Those who control resources inevitably attract attention. That inversion confuses most men. They believe visibility creates power. In reality, power tolerates visibility only when convenient. True wealth often moves silently. By the time it is noticed, it is already fortified. At this stage, the question shifts. It is no longer how do I make money? That question belongs to beginners. The sharper question is where am I leaking power? Because leakage is subtle. Daily. Habitual. Invisible to the untrained eye. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The final phase is quiet. No announcements. No dramatic pivots. Just gradual separation from herd psychology. Money stops being theoretical and becomes operational. You start noticing how often men sabotage themselves the moment leverage is within reach. They celebrate too early. Overshare plans. Relax discipline the second results appear. Machiavelli warned that men are most vulnerable at perceived victory. Vigilance dissolves into comfort. Comfort invites intrusion. Wealth rarely disappears through catastrophe. It dissolves through exposure. Through loose boundaries. Through unnecessary generosity. The poor believe generosity creates loyalty. The strategist understands loyalty is temporary. Interest is permanent. People align with advantage, not gratitude. This is not bitterness. It is pattern recognition. Money is not preserved by goodwill. It is preserved by structure. Structure outlives emotion. That is why the wealthy rely on systems over promises. Contracts over verbal trust. Processes over intention. Intentions fade. Systems endure. At this level, the psychology of money becomes environmental design. You build conditions that produce predictable outcomes. Predictability is not weakness when you control the variables. Most men are predictable in the worst way. Their reactions are obvious. Their spending reveals insecurity. Their breaking points are visible. The strategist becomes predictable only to himself. To others, he appears measured. Reserved. Hard to read. That unreadability forces caution. And caution shifts power. Machiavelli understood that uncertainty is leverage. When people cannot anticipate you, they hesitate. Hesitation creates openings. This is why being fully understood is expensive. The moment others believe they have you figured out, they assign a price to you. Pricing caps upside. Self-disclosure, especially financial self-disclosure, carries cost. Speak too openly about struggle, and you invite sympathy, not leverage. Speak too openly about success, and you invite competition, not alignment. As influence grows, the strategist speaks less. Silence is not emptiness. It is contained pressure. And contained pressure forces others to move first. Whoever moves first reveals intention. Intention reveals leverage. This is the edge most never develop. Money is not chased. It moves toward clarity, restraint, and control. Those qualities repel chaos. And chaos is where the majority operate, seeking excitement, validation, rapid gains. Fast gains are unstable. Stability is built through boring decisions repeated consistently. Machiavelli admired rulers who appeared unremarkable to opponents. Boring on the surface. Strategic underneath. Wealth works the same way. The disciplined often appear unimpressive. They do not broadcast ambition. They execute it quietly. Outsiders call it luck. Luck is preparation intersecting with timing. And timing favors those not emotionally compromised. Emotion remains the final threat, even after wealth is built. Fear of losing status. Desire for approval. Craving recognition. These reopen exposure. The strategist anchors identity internally. Not in numbers. In control. Control over time. Control over reaction. Control over direction. Money is a tool to reinforce that control, not a scoreboard to display it. This distinction protects stability. Those who chase numbers never feel secure. Those who build systems sleep calmly regardless of fluctuation. Machiavelli understood that stability arises from control, not abundance. Abundance without control breeds fragility. That is why sudden wealth evaporates so often. Numbers increase. Psychology remains unchanged. The psychology of making money is slower than people expect, and more permanent. It relies on consistent positioning above impulse, above ego, above herd behavior. This positioning isolates you. Isolation is part of the cost. Most cannot tolerate it. They crave agreement. Validation. Belonging. Those cravings pull them back into reactive patterns. The strategist accepts temporary isolation as strategic distance. Machiavelli warned that rising above the crowd invites resentment, not applause. As you detach, others will misinterpret you. Your restraint will look like arrogance. Your silence like coldness. Your boundaries like selfishness. None of that alters the outcome. Wealth is not built by consensus. It is built by disciplined decisions made without witnesses. And here is the final realization. Money is engineered through restraint. Through knowing when not to act. When not to speak. When not to spend. Each withheld reaction compounds. Over time, stability becomes gravity. Opportunities begin orbiting you. Negotiations soften. Pressure decreases. You stop chasing outcomes. You select them. You stop seeking permission. You design conditions. You stop reacting to money. Money responds to you. The shift is gradual. Almost invisible. Until one day the contrast is undeniable. While others scramble, you calculate. While others panic, you wait. Machiavelli described inevitability as the state where outcomes feel preordained, not by fate, but by preparation eliminating alternatives. At this level, wealth feels less like achievement and more like consequence. A consequence of clarity. Of long-term orientation. Of refusing emotional chaos. Few reach it not because it is complex, but because it requires abandoning comforting illusions, fairness, effort alone, deserving. Once those dissolve, the game becomes simple. Not easy. Simple. And simplicity is dangerous to those who never trained for it. You now see the pattern. Why money flows upward. Why some ascend quietly while others remain trapped in visible struggle. The leaks. The traps. The loops. The question is not whether this psychology works. The question is whether you will apply it, or return to reaction the moment pressure rises.